Welcome to the show. It's late, and I made a rule that I wasn't supposed to make videos late at night. Well, I'm breaking the rule. We'll just call it a bedtime story. Well, guys, hopefully you're doing well. Welcome to another show.
Wakey, wakey, Mr. Truck Driver. It's not too late for me to give you a bedtime story.
Hello, Don. Hopefully I didn't make you feel uncomfortable by offering to read you a bedtime story. And Don's our targeted individual community truck driving friend. That's right. And he's got some type of Chinese guy following him around, a government spy. You guys have probably heard me make little video bites about it. Mr. Feng Loi. Yeah. Gosh, that would be weird. Having this Chinese guy everywhere. Yeah. You should hear his stories. It's pretty trippy. But hopefully you're doing well, Don, and hopefully the rest of you are doing well. And tonight, our little bedtime story tonight is going to be dealing with the three sisters of despair. And they might be creeping up around you right now. Maybe even following you around for the last year or the last 5 years, waiting for an opportune time to bring in their poison, their venom. And their names are woulda, coulda, and shoulda. And I've got some good news for you. You don't have to listen to them. If you're a targeted individual who's experienced a lot of loss, you might look down the old pathway that you've been on or go down memory lane and see a lot of wasted years. Well, really, are they? I mean, you're supposed to believe that, right? And I've talked about the fact that targeted individuals are exposed to a lot of extracurricular activity, right? A lot of coercion, a lot of manipulation, a lot of hindrances, and there's going to be an effect. Yes, there is. And, it's really not your fault. You didn't choose that stuff. You're supposed to believe you did. But you didn't. You were subjected to things that are supposed to drive you crazy, make you dysfunctional, make you paranoid, maybe even make you depressed to the point where you try to commit suicide or hurt somebody to get angry. All these things are very coercive. And, the techniques change in a way where you just look back and it just looks like wasted time. Frustration, futility, and it was all for nothing. I was talking to Reed again. You guys heard me talk about him in the last video and how he got discharged unfairly from the Navy. He's trying to take care of that right now. I'd like to put a prayer request out there for Reed and that he would be able to take care of this and draw near to the Lord. But, he was expressing that frustration, right? He was feeling the tension. And for you targeted individuals who've been playing this game for a long time, you're a lot more vulnerable to this, right? And they'll creep up around you. Well, if you would have done that, just think of how these things could be different. Oh, you should have done this, and you could have had that. And there's no way there was really no getting out of this, guys. You have to realize that. You have to know these things are going to come into your mind, and you have to know the answer, right? You can't control it. I've talked about that before. That's banging your head against a brick wall. Targeted individuals, well, they can control what they're doing, right? There's things that you can do there. You can try to discourage people from harassing you. You can try to protect yourself, but at the end of the day, well, you really don't have control over what other people do. You don't. And it's frustrating. Other people might be looking at you and, just assuming that you're inept.
Well, I wonder why they don't figure something out different than that.
But really, they don't have any idea what you're dealing with. I do. Oh, I know exactly what you're dealing with. And, whether you're paranoid or whether you've had a hard time staying employed because of workplace harassment or, whether you just have had a hard time keeping up your morale. Sometimes that's difficult. Waking up happy is, that's how you start the day. That's a pretty tough one, especially if Mr. Feng Loi is hanging out. No, I'm just kidding. But, seriously, It's gaslighting, okay? And you have to remember that all these things that have happened to you, all these hindrances, all these blockades that have come in your way are there to get you to this point of despair, all right, if nothing else. And to gaslight you into believing all kinds of different things, right? And I've talked about that. A lot of the accusations that go along with this type of coercion are meant to make you feel condemned. They are, and a lot of the truth of your situation has been obfuscated. Okay, and people are starting to, well, they're starting to point out some of the dysfunctions that are inevitable. You might be feeling depressed. You might be feeling tired, having a hard time with motivation. You don't want to get up and try because someone's always there to knock you down. You have to fight. And it's tough. It wears people down. And it's just the reality of it. And those three sisters of despair, well, they don't help. And they usually visit at night. I've noticed that. You're up on your phone, maybe looking through Facebook or something. I wonder what happened to that person I used to know, and then you see their picture, and they're the CEO of a company or whatever, and here you are, a lonely, barely getting by, targeted individual. And it happens to me. But you know what? Like I said, there was really no getting out of it. You didn't choose this stuff. And you have to remember that. That's the first thing you have to remember. Then, of course, you have to remember the motive is to gaslight you and to get you to internalize this stuff, for it to seep into your identity. It's important. That's one of the main agendas. Well, the first thing that you have to recognize is the methodology that you're dealing with. And you have to see that it's a lie. It's a 100% absolute lie that you could have got out of this, okay? There's no way. People talk about being the chosen ones and all that. This stuff, it did choose you. It did. And a lot of the gaslighting that goes along with it, they might pick out some of your character defects or something in your past, or they'll blow something out of proportion. But I've talked about that stuff, guys. I've talked about the inconsistencies of that lie. And look around. There's all kinds of people that we could use as examples who have done horrible things, and nobody's done anything to them at all. They haven't been stalked. They haven't experienced street theater, workplace harassment, gaslighting, or any kind of weird stuff that happens to them that targeted individuals deal with at all. And I've talked about some of the most prolific examples because targeted individuals are fed those lies that somehow they're such a horrible person or failure or whatever that they've just been targeted. They've been selected. They've been chosen for this type of harassment. And they have been chosen for that, but the reasons that are given to the targeted individual are lies. And you can see the inconsistencies. I've used these examples many times, right? You got Gary Ridgway, right? How many people did he kill? I think they said it was upwards of around 50 people, right? Young girls, confused, abused women that were into prostitution. A lot of them were very young. And he messed around with the FBI and all that stuff. And I get into a lot of the things that targeted individuals deal with. And some people are very... I don't know, they get offended and the things that they've experienced are real and they will fight with me. So people can read minds. They can read minds. Really? What about Gary Ridgway? How come no one knew where he was? How come the FBI spent, I think it was millions of dollars trying to catch the guy and they couldn't do it? They finally got him, but it was a long time. A lot of money was spent. A lot of people died. And it brings back that age-old question when you're dealing with gang stalking. How many people know? Right? Because it seems like you're dealing with this cabal, this secret society of people that seem to know all your secrets and all the things about you that no one should know. Well, I've talked about those things. Sometimes you're dealing with technology. Sometimes you're dealing with, the government kind of thing. But a lot of times you're dealing with the spiritual dimension, and they know all that stuff. And when people are influenced, That's what you're dealing with. And some of the people out there that you're dealing with street theater or whatever, they have chosen that dark path. They're part of that. They are. They have partial knowledge. Okay, it's not like they're being overcome, like The Exorcist or something. Sometimes it's like that, but not always. Okay, and things are revealed. But to the people that haven't been selected, like you, whether it's Gary Ridgway or Dennis Rader or Ted Bundy or whatever, people don't know. What about all the mysteries that are out there in the news? Surely these people with all these psychic mind-reading powers could find them, right? They could be rich. They would be famous. You know why they're not going to do it? Because they don't have that. And when you're dealing with, fortune-telling or prophecies or anything like that, all that power, all that information and stuff comes from the spiritual dimension. And a lot of people will fight with me. They'll say, no, there's psychotronics. And, I don't know. I think that there is a type of technology that we don't know about, and it does come from the spiritual dimension. Whether or not people have gotten a hold of it, I think, what I just told you would refute it. Because if the FBI would have had that kind of technology, they would have caught Gary Ridgway. They would have caught Dennis Rader a lot sooner than they did. A 30-year manhunt, right? Ted Bundy was running around killing all kinds of people. There's mysteries that are unsolved now. The Zodiac killer. Nobody ever figured him out. There's a lot of people who think they know. But if they would have this type of technology, they would know exactly where to look. And I don't think they do. I personally don't. That's just my opinion. And we can agree to disagree. But the point I'm making is the inconsistencies. Gary Ridgway had a lot of money. He had a multi-bedroom house. He had a nice wife and family. He had a great job. He didn't experience any workplace harassment. In fact, the people around him said they had no idea. Right? No clue. Never would have guessed that he was running around doing all that weird stuff out there, where he'd dump all those bodies, play around with the FBI, and he was even laying sausages on the corpses and all kinds of weird things to throw off the detectives and play all these weird games with them and everything. The CIA and the FBI, if they had all that stuff, they would have caught him. But that's not my point. My point is that this guy was running around and he wasn't affected at all. He wasn't being oppressed. He wasn't being harassed. There was no street theater. There was no harassment. Nothing. Nobody seemed to have a clue. Dennis Rader was the same way. I guess the women in his community said that, if they had to pick someone to go down a dark alley with, it would be old Dennis. And they called him Blue Book Dennis because he was such a stickler for the rules. Yeah. And he was a deacon in the Lutheran church there in Wichita, Kansas. The Boy Scout leader. In fact, his last murder, he literally snuck out of a little camping trip thing that they had up there in Wichita, Kansas for all the Boy Scouts. And whether he was alone or not, that's the question. But he went and took pictures of the body at the Lutheran church and took it out in the country and ran around, did all these things. But no one knew. No one had any idea. The Zodiac killer, he's never been caught. The inconsistencies are there. Dennis had a pretty decent house, had a family. He had 30 nice Christmases with his family, and no one knew. No one ever suspected. At least that's the story. So how does that work? Well, there's forces at work in this world. I've talked about that. When the nations were divided up according to the sons of God, principalities and powers, and they have plans for everyone. It's not to say these people got away with anything. Obviously they didn't. But they certainly didn't experience the stalking and hindrance that targeted individuals experience. But it's almost good news, isn't it? The world has all these things, and you have to remember that sometimes success turns into failure. Sometimes beauty turns into ugliness. Sometimes strength turns into weakness. And your weakness now, well, I'd like to think that it's turning into strength. So instead of looking at these things as wasted years, or that you're losing and all these people are just kind of running around you, I don't think it's like that. I think that there's a lot of illusions. We just talked about some of them, and some of the success that people have out there, I think that's an illusion too. Because really, in my opinion, targeted individuals are the ones that really know what's going on. Everybody else is on this little yellow brick road. They're blind. They don't have any idea unless they're involved in it. Okay, unless they're those people. And they don't know. They're blind. You can call it ignorant bliss. You can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, well, there's going to be an effect from that too. And everybody has their opportunity. Just seeing what this world is truly like is one of the biggest gifts a targeted individual is given. You have that opportunity. And I've talked about the fact that, this stuff should strengthen your faith. It's obvious this stuff is evil. It's in your face. And that problem of evil can only be answered so many different ways, right? It's not evolution, right? It's not just some kind of genetic fluke or something. I don't believe it's the reptilians. I think it's the demonic realm. I think it's that whole story that's illustrated in the Bible. That's what I believe. And when I'm dealing with this stuff, that's the first thing that I need to remember. Because if I don't, then I'm going to get distracted. And I'm going to forget what's going to happen after this. And I'm going to forget that these people are going to be judged and they're going to be dealt with. You don't want to forget that. You don't want to look around and fall for all these lateral comparisons where it looks like people are living the high life. Like I said, they're either in on it or they're blind. And most of them don't have any faith. You're probably more of a danger to the kingdom of darkness than you know. Just because you see what's going on. So rather than to look at these things, guys, and internalize them and believe the gaslighting, and to believe the lies. See the inconsistencies that are involved. See the strategy. Okay? And remember that you're headed somewhere. This is not it. You're not moving towards the end of everything. You are moving towards the beginning of everything. Guys, be good to yourselves. Be safe.